Badgers get a big commitment on the defensive end. Let's talk about Carmelow Reed and what he could bring to that front seven for Wisconsin. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers. Pop-up episode here, but we got a big commit we want to talk about. Carmelow Reed joining the Badgers 2026 Edge. About 6'7", 250 coming out of Illinois. Big, hulking 6'7" guy. Let's talk about it. Let's fire the cannons. This is definitely an interesting one with a ton of upside for the Badgers.
Fire the recruiting cannons. Another one is headed to Madison on Wisconsin.
What would have happened if you had knocked yourself out there? Am I just sitting here like talking by myself?
Oh, they upgraded the cannon size. My ears are ringing.
I bet they are.
Let's talk about it, man. That shocked me a little bit. Those are more powerful than my previous confetti guns. All right, so if you're listening on audio, I apologize. We just literally fired the cannons. Let's talk a little bit about Carmelow Reed jumping in. Badgers' third commit here, high 3-star. He's like an 88, 87, depending on where you look at it. Again, 6'7", 250. Pretty good offer list here. You have a bunch of SEC offers, a couple Big Ten offers. What did you like on film with Reed?
I think he's a guy that has good quickness for his size. He obviously has a huge wingspan. Personally, I think he's a guy who you're probably going to see put it with a hand in the dirt more often. I just don't know if the fluidity is there or the flexibility for him to be a guy that can stand up. Like, he just doesn't sink his hips in the way that you're looking for a guy at that size. Prime example, you and I were talking about it right before we came on. You have a guy like Jalen Williams who kind of has a little bit of that Mason Reiger ability to kind of flex and sink his hips. I don't think that that's quite here with him. Now, that being said, great physicality, plays really violent. He's a guy who has, I think, more than enough quickness off the edge to be a problem, especially with his length dealing with a tackle. They're going to struggle with him because he may be the guy that's going to have longer arms than the tackle. And the tackles are really going to struggle to keep him off. And he plays with physicality. So he's going to be a guy who can get into the pads on somebody and get around that edge. And I think that, hey, we talked about the Peterson spin move. This is a guy that can actually make it an effective piece because of his size. Like, he's legitimately going to be tough to deal with because that's of all that length.
Yeah, I'm going to try to put the film up here, but it looks like it's a little choppy. Justin, that spin move, you are correct. There are several of them on the clip where let's start with the obvious. I might take this film off if it's not playing. It looks like it's not going to play. But there's just not that many 6'7", 250-pound 2026 kids walking around. You don't run in. Just think about your everyday life, going to the gas station, the grocery store, your job, the post office, get some lunch. You're not going to meet too many 6'7", 250-pound guys. So he's got a massive frame. He kind of reminds me
move like this.
And he moves well. Like, he's got a massive frame. He can move. He kind of reminds me from an upside standpoint of Leteju in last class. Not the same player, but a type of guy that has a big upside, but you got to get him in and develop.
He's very raw. I will say that there's a lot of tools there. You look at him. This is a guy who could realistically, if it comes together, I kind of gave two perspectives on him. If everything comes together, you have a guy who potentially could be a dominant edge guy as like a 4-3 defensive end rusher, hand on the dirt guy. If it doesn't come together, I think you still have a really nice rotational piece. Mm-hmm. I just think that he's got that type of athleticism that even if he's not perfect, he's going to be a guy that will be productive. It just might not be the game changer that he could be.
Well, and I think that's the floor. And again, the floor is always assuming players are going to come in and work hard and develop and do the things they need to do.
He looks like he plays hard. Like, this is a kid that you see the effort with him on film, that he just continues to keep moving.
But you don't always know till they get to campus. We've seen that. We've seen that the last couple of years with some basketball guys as well. But I think the floor is, you have, to your point, I think he's an edge setter, long arms. He's going to extend. He's got the strength and the power once he gets some leverage and plays with a little more technique. Because you and I both see there's moments where he kind of stands up a little too high. I don't think the competition, you were talking before the show, it's not I think it's fine. It's in Illinois. I don't think it's elite players he's playing against, and he can get away with some of these things because he's kind of like a werewolf out there. I use that frame that comparison at times for guys who are just too physical and too athletic for the guys they're facing. But I think even at his floor, this guy projects as a run-stopping defensive end edge player that can set the edge, and that's a really valuable piece as well.
Yeah, I think you look at him and the type of things that I see, and they've done a really good job of getting this body type in their defensive line room. And I think what we can look forward to is we're like a year away from Wisconsin really being able to cycle through guys that are going to make tackles uncomfortable. You're going to have guys that are pretty quick for their size. They're going to be quicker than a tackle, and they all have really good length and athleticism. Obviously, I think Williams is probably the biggest freak there, but both Leteju and Reed are guys that really project to be able to be effective because they're going to be guys that have enough burst and enough physicality to cause problems. They may not get home a ton, but they can at least push the pocket from the end. And that's going to be problematic for a lot of teams.
Reunitis says it's been a while. It has been a minute since football committed. It feels good to get back on track and get something else on the board there. And here's the other thing with defensive line recruiting. Defensive line recruiting is in some ways a little similar to offensive line recruiting. You just got to get bodies in there at times. Like you need big guys and you need several waves of them. And you have to keep that pipeline stocked with players that you think can be projectable and that you can develop and that have upside. This guy checks every one of those boxes.
Yeah.
I think he's projectable. He has upside. You could develop him. And again, you need to continually feed that pipeline because what are the most expensive spots in the portal if you can't find and develop those guys outside of quarterback? It's defensive linemen, it's offensive tackles, and it's maybe corners. Or, it's really hard to find these guys in the portal developed. So you got to get them in high school. You got to develop them. This is a great guy to get in the pipeline, in my opinion.
And he comes from this is a situation where you look at it's almost optimal with him being a guy from Illinois. That you probably also get the fact that I'm assuming in some regard, he wanted to stay somewhat close to home. You look at his offer list; it's mostly Midwest schools. This SEC really started jumping in on him. I believe Ole Miss and LSU got offers in. This is the type of project guy that ends up being an NFL draft pick in 3 or 4 years. Like that's the type of skill set that he has to him. Will he hit it? No idea. But the tools are there for him to definitely turn into an NFL guy.
Couple comments here. JB, what's up, brother? Love JB. Got the confetti going. Boom. Hunter said thought it was another basketball commit. John says looks like a solid get. Yep, Pedro. I'm just here for edge guys that have the bodies to succeed in the Big Ten. That's part of it right there. That's half the battle. Finding the guys who are physical enough to succeed in this conference.
Yeah, Justin Tyler with Jalen Williams kind of hype. Williams is a little bit better of an athlete. He's more fluid. He's a guy that when I watched his film again right before we came on here, he actually has the ability to sink his hips a little bit and actually stand up. I think he can do that. He's got really light feet. I think that Reed is a little heavier footed, but that doesn't really matter. Like from him being a pass rush standpoint off the edge, I actually prefer him as a guy who puts his hand in the dirt. I think he's got a little wider frame than what Williams has. I think this is a guy legitimately, if you're using him correctly to me, you want him at about 280 screaming off the edge with some good weight behind his power. Because if you watch him on film, he takes it like there's a half second there and he doesn't have elite burst, but he gets really quick, really fast. And I think he's a guy who's going to transition power really well. And I think that that's going to be a problem because he does play physical. So he's going to be a guy that if he gets into you, he's going to absolutely drive back tackles.
I like the versatility here too. I think this is a guy you could play on the outside, but pass rushing situations, I think you could slide him inside a little bit and create a little havoc potentially inside because he can slice between that guard center gap. In worst case, he's got the length to get his hands up and bother passing lanes and some of those short third down passes. So I think there's versatility here. I really like seeing a guy this size, and we talked about it on the jump, but the ability to put a spin move on somebody, maintain balance at that height and weight shows a level of coordination that not a lot of guys his size in high school have. There's a lot of tools here. It's a little raw. I wouldn't count on it year one. You never know, but I think there's a lot of upside here.
I think you're hoping that he starts to show that he can be in the rotation year 2 with a redshirt year on him. I look at him. He's a guy that it's going to take him a year probably. He's going to be a baby deer when he gets in Wisconsin's program. You're going to probably take a year to get his body to where you want it. I think he's 250 right now. I will be shocked if he's not 270 by the time he's a redshirt freshman. And I think that at that point, you can probably look at him. You got that year of skill under him where you're going to get technique work in, and he's going to need technique work. Like we talked about it. Pad level's a problem right now. Which is why I like him better with his hand on the ground, because I just think that he does a better job of staying low coming out of the hand off the ground. He just really stands straight up when you see him off the edge, standing on a 2-point stance. But that said, like he has the ability that if you do a lot of technique work with him and get him to understand what he needs to do, I think he's going to be a coachable kid. The athleticism's there. Like you can see that he's athletic enough to probably be able to get it. Even the spin move, like he has good balance. It's just a matter of him getting fine-tuned. And I don't know, this is a guy I would like to see kind of like how if he just kind of recently blew up in terms of getting bigger. Out of curiosity, how comfortable he is in his body. He's a guy who could potentially maybe have some things that maybe gets more fluid if he is a guy who just recently went through a growth spurt. So it will be really interesting to see. DJ Hungerford.
I was going to say really quick, as Bo Dragon says, you can't teach big. That is a very good comment there. We do need to take a quick second. We'll come back with comments coming up. We are past our break here. We have to take a quick second for our friends of the show. Continue to come back. We'll take all of your comments, questions, including a question about the upside of this overall recruiting class and how this player may compare to a former Badgers star on the defensive line. That's coming up next. Locked On Badgers. First, a quick second for our friends of the show over at Gametime. Gametime is your number one source for all your ticketing needs. Get together as a community. Get together with your brothers, your sisters, the family members, whatever it is. Get out to the Kohl Center. Get out to Camp Randall or wherever else you want to go, whether it's a concert, theater, you want to go check out a museum tour. You can probably find those tickets on Gametime as well. They got all your tickets curated for you, Broadway shows, whatever it is. It's fast. It's easy. You don't have to sift through a bunch of stuff. It's curated for you, and it is the best prices and the easiest marketplace you're going to find. And there's flash deals, so you don't have to worry about logistics planning months in ahead. I've literally got Braves tickets on my way to Trua Stadium in the cab. So that's how quick and easy it is. They were emailed to me before we got there, before our Uber dropped us off. It is fast and simple. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, let's jump back into this. Let's get some of your thoughts, your questions, your comments on Carmelow Reed. You got a comment you want to throw up?
Yeah, the first one here was from DJ Hungerford. Laudermilk type project, perhaps. I would say he's got a little bit more athleticism than what Laudermilk is. I don't think you want him that heavy either. Laudermilk, I think, was close to 300 by the time he left here. That's probably a little bigger than ideally, if you're going to play him on the edge, you want him to be.
You know what I'm curious? So I was just going to say really quick, what I'd be curious on Laudermilk is go back and watch his high school film and see what he look like. Because I think he was about 6'7", 250 in high school, playing 8-man.
He was. I don't think he put the weight on very well, though. Like, he lost some – like, if you look at him noticeably when he was here, he wasn't the athlete that he was at the lighter weight. And I'm curious to see if Reed carries it better than what he did. What I will say on this is I think realistically this is probably the best edge room we've had, like from recruiting the last 3 cycles, since probably Barry was here. Like, I don't think we've had, like, we're talking guys who are legitimate NFL guys that were coming in back then. And I feel like we're, for the first time here, the level of athleticism that's coming in for edge guys, most of these guys can play legit 4-3. Like, you could play 4-3 end. They're going to have we're going to effectively be a multiple defense. Let's be honest. At this point, you have a nice combination of guys who could probably be a true stand-up outside linebacker, and a lot of guys that you look at, they're probably closer to being hand in the dirt.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be guys that are legitimately called edges that are going to be 280, 290.
Yeah, which you need. Like, you need versatility. You got to have some of those guys, but you also got to be able to shift a little bit depending on who you play. Mm-hmm. I just think this is the type of guy, no matter what system you run, no matter what scheme you run, if you're Wisconsin, you can take kids like this all day long. You take them, you put them in the weight room, the training room, and you develop them for a couple of years. You know, this is the type of player that the elite blue blood schools, they look for this frame and some of these physical tools. They just get a little more refined version. And that's kind of where Wisconsin has to live, that high 3-star, low 4-star. And you can win with that. Iowa wins with that. You can absolutely win with this type of player. I think it's a really important get in a big get for Wisconsin.
He's in that range that I talked about that Wisconsin needs to get into, that 88 to 91 range, where we're right behind the blue blood type teams, but they're the guys that if you put the work into them have potential to play at that level. And that's where Iowa lives. They absolutely do that, where they grab guys in that 88 to 90 range and build a defensive line room, and they have a dominant defense off of it. Wisconsin has the opportunity to get in that same ballpark. We seem to be going after a little bit different body types. They go for more traditional, like 4-3 ends. We're going a little bit bigger. We seem to be attacking length. We seem to be living kind of in that 6'5" to 6'7" range with our edge guys that we're chasing after, unless we're going for somebody who's more of a speed guy.
Yeah. Here's a question for you from MVG, the great MVG. Who do you like more, Reed or Jake Johnson? So Jake Johnson, for people who don't follow recruiting quite as closely, really good interior defensive lineman. Badgers ran on him early. He just committed to USC, which if you follow the breadcrumbs, Max Steinecker left Wisconsin for USC. There's certainly a connection there. Justin and I talked about it. We both really like Jake Johnson. I like them both. Like, I don't know. Like,
they're different players. And they're different positions.
Yeah.
Jake Johnson was my top of the board guy for the interior.
He's good.
There's nobody else that I would have taken over him.
Yeah, he's really good.
I would say Reed is a little rawer than some of the guys that we're chasing after for the edge, but the upside is there for him to be every bit as good as any of the other guys that we're chasing after right now. I really like this pickup for an edge guy. I think there's a chance that he ends up a 4-star by the time all's said and done. The tools are there if he has really good senior film, which I think he's definitely capable of doing. That you have a guy that, and he may have offers that continue to come in. Like I said, he's got Ole Miss, LSU offers. It doesn't get any higher than that. Unless he starts getting Ohio State and Alabama or Georgia, there's nobody else that you're going to see that's any higher than those teams.
Which I think I did read that Alabama was starting to kick around some tires on this guy too. So
it doesn't shock me with that frame.
I'd also say Alabama kicks tires on a lot of people to keep seats warm because they can come in and poach late when they want to. That's a smart strategy, by the way, because you can always come in and poach if somebody blows up and be like, oh, no, we were watching film. We were there with you too. We just weren't quite sure. And by the way, we're Alabama. Like, it's just easier for those schools, right? A couple of final thoughts here. Again, we're going to go a little shorter today. We got Travis Burgess on the show. I recorded that today. He's coming up tomorrow. And I also did a show today talking Badgers over under, which is 5.5. Justin, where are you at right now on that?
I would take the over. I actually think that the team is going to be improved this year. The problem is there's enough. This schedule is such a nightmare that there's not a lot of gimmies. I think you have three games that I can say that are legitimate wins, and that's Maryland in the first 2 games. And outside of that, everything else is kind of in that coin flip range, unless we're substantially improved, which is possible. I think that there's a chance that legitimately, if the offense is considerably better and able to be more efficient, that they take a lot of pressure off the defense and we really cause problems for teams. And I think that is a possibility. I think the offense really, to sum it up really quick, I think what it comes down to is Wisconsin has a chance to be really improved if the trenches are really improved this year. I don't think anything else really matters beyond that. If they're capable of running the football against anybody and they're capable of being solid defensively at stopping the run, I think the team has a chance to be in that 7 or 8 win range.
Yeah, I'm going to go over too. Sean Campbell below says offense will be there this year. If the D plays, we will be over the Vegas line easy. I'm going over simply because we won. How many games did we win last year, everybody? Let's count them together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We won 5 games last year. We won 5 games with the 16th best passer rating in the Big Ten, the 16th best turnover margin, which there is an element of luck with turnovers. It's not all luck, but there is an element. We were 134
per loss and sacks.
Lost, and we won 5 games against the schedule last year. So I think if you just get incrementally better in those spots, last year's schedule is hellacious too. And we won 5 games with Braden Locke, Leon Lowry. Come on. I think there's room for another game or 2 here. Just becoming decent in spots. So I'm going to take the over for the 4th year in a row.
Hey, we're not saying substantially. There's not going to be any 9-win talk this year. If it happens, it's going to shock all of us.
Yep. Justin says taking the under. Yeah, Hooger says, give me 6 wins. That'd be just over. Again, the over-under is 5.5. So Hooger, if you got 6 wins, you got the over there. And that's what I think it is. I think it's 6 or 7 wins. And you hit the over.
I think 7's definitely in play. It really depends on how good Edwards is if they have a running game. Like, I think there's an outside chance. Look at it this way. Last year, Grimes with Kansas with a horrific passing game. Jalen Daniels was not good from an efficiency standpoint. They scored 30 points a game. I think Wisconsin's capable of doing that.
I'd kill for that.
We're going to be much better at quarterback. Edwards won't be that level of floor.
I would do dirty things for 30 points a game.
For perspective on that, their quarterback was 15 touchdowns, 12 picks. Edwards won't be that bad.
I agree. And Edwards at Maryland in the Big Ten last year was 15-9.
And that's with no offensive line.
He's no offensive line. He's done it in this conference. He's not great. He's not a star. He's solid. And solid is so much better than where we were last year. All right, we're going to wrap it up there. A couple comments to wrap it up. Pedro says he just wants a bowl game. Mo is at 6-6 in the Mayo Bath. Rog says, give me 7. Ryan Robbins, solid first name, says the Red Rocket will take us to the moon. Billy Edwards Jr., all on that one. And JB, pumping the optimism. Over 10 wins, playoffs, yak action. Let's go. All right, we're going to wrap it there. Again, big commitment for the Badgers. Bunch more content coming up. You got Justin coming up with Nick on his channel. Travis Burgess on my channel coming up tomorrow, plus another show. Who do I got coming up? I got another DB coming up. Oh my gosh, I should actually know that name. Consider he's coming on the show. But anyway, on Wisconsin, appreciate you guys, and we will definitely talk later.